You good, Nick? There it goes. Okay, I'll call to order find my date here.
27th.
Oh, the September 27th, 2022 regular board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Southgate's mission statement is learning for life. The vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Okay, that brings us to the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio to approve the agenda as presented. Is there support?
Doesn't matter.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. And this takes us to the presentations. The first one is Dean Transportation.
Yes. As everyone's aware, in February, the Board of Education approved the return of general busing, and it has been, I think, very successful as a beginning and start. We've seen some, although our numbers are not in, we've seen some increases in our elementary numbers, close to 80 students that have come through this, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from families. I did, though, ask Dean to return today to talk a little bit about what happened between February and September. So in February, Dean Transportation outlined a plan for Southgate Community Schools that included recruitment of drivers, that included plans for mapping, notifying families of their stops, and basically what it looked like to restart busing for a community who has not had busing for a very long time. So we went through the last several months, and I have asked them to come today and talk a little bit about what happened between February and September, where we are now at this point in time, and what we can expect moving forward. So I'd like to introduce to you the Dean team that is working with us. We have Beth Reum. She is our regional manager for Dean Transportation, and she's been on speed dial and on email and on Zoom. We meet every Friday to get updates. We have Tony Thomas. She is here also. She supervises the site itself, and then we have Missy Pierce, who is our dispatcher and router. So I'm going to ask them to come on up to the table up here and just talk a little bit to the board about, in the community, about how it's gone. And you can move those chairs over to get comfortable.
Do you want us to sit?
It's not a Senate hearing, but
By all means, sit down.
Yeah, just pull one more around there.
Thank you.
So, hello everyone.
Hello.
And, so I'm just gonna talk just briefly because this is, our team here. So I have been down here since we started, just to make sure that this all, that we're all working together. I've been driving buses as well. But we started in February, and it's almost unheard of that as of Sunday, we are fully staffed in Southgate, especially right now. I've been over at Crestwood as well, and we're still 5 drivers short over there. So, and that's the same at all of our operations throughout the state. So that is, definitely because of the teamwork. And I will say, Tony's a great leader. Obviously, we all know that and love her. But she, that goes downhill to all of her people. And not just the staff that's been there for a while. All these new people that we're bringing on board are all of the same mind as far as let's get this done and let's do it right. So that's all I want to say. And so Tony's going to go over some of the other things that we've been doing.
I do want to caveat on what Beth said. It is unheard of to hire what we've hired. Going to RISA and hearing other supervisors, they're 5 down, they're 6 down. It takes longer to get a school bus driver through the process. Like when we started, it was a week or 2. Now it's 5 to 6 weeks to get somebody prepared.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the hiring events I've done. I've gone to a few. We've done back to school, had the buses at the schools. We have done Allen Elementary, Ice Cream Social. We did Downriver Cruise. We had a hiring event at one of the local hotels. What else? We've been Market in the
Trains.
Park, the trains.
Ice cream
Anywhere we
socials.
can get in Southgate to get the word out, we've been there. We've also put the yard signs everywhere. And
We
word
did
of mouth.
postcards.
And the postcards. On the postcards, it would say, we're hiring. So the drivers and the staff have been really promoting, like, come on, work with us. So that's really helped. And we're gonna continue to hire because that's not enough. We want more, to get that done.
A lot of our new hires are actually from the community.
I was gonna ask that.
That's
Yeah.
the
That's
best.
nice.
So we have a lot of
Yeah.
parents and, like our attendants, our pairs that were already in the school system that are now doing the bus as well as attendants. A lot of the parents are now drivers, the postcards and just all the events and the referral programs that we're doing via word of mouth. So like if somebody works in the school district and they know somebody who's looking for a job, Dean partnered with them for them to also get benefit.
Yeah, and
benefited,
that's
so.
the best driver and attendant. Someone who's, their child is in the school. That's how I started. And then I never got off the bus. And my kids are 30. So, with that being said, I'll move on to the field trips. We have been able to accommodate most.
We will be.
We will be. And I have to say, in the last 4 years, we haven't missed a single trip, so this really bothers me. I hope you all know that. Sharon knows that. I take it to heart. I don't like to miss anything. The problem with it when we were understaffed is when you leave and have trips at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and 3:15, if your entire staff is driving, that doesn't leave anyone to do the trip except for the 2 on-calls. So with that being said, with us fully staffed, I'm still hiring. I have 4 to 5 more people in the hopper, which I call, they're in the beginning stage. They're 5 to 6 weeks out. So we've also condensed a few runs to free them up, like voc ed. As soon as they're done at 1:30 to 1:45, depending on if we're doing school to teachers, future teachers, or hospital. They'll be able to go right to the school and do the drop. And then the drivers that finish their run and go back and immediately to the game and wait there. I also have to say the AD and the secretary has always been willing to work with us with their time slots. We do doubles, we'll do triples, and we've had a great partnership to move the times around. So Patty, the dispatcher, does all the field trips and works great with Liz and Beth, and we've always moved trips around by 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's gonna take me 10 minutes to get here, maybe 15, we're coming in hot. So they have always known that, so we look forward to getting back to that.
And a lot of our newer drivers are excited to get out and do the trips as well. So there's interest in them fulfilling that, that
And then I'm gonna leave it over to Missy for the routes,
routes.
the routing and the routes.
I will have to say I've worked for Dean Transportation since 2018, and I learned a little bit of routing working there. And then when we brought on Southgate, and the router position for Southgate was offered, I did not know what it was going to entail. It was a lot more than I had anticipated, but I was excited for it. So we've been pulling 40 to 80-hour weeks for the last 5 to 6 weeks, just making sure that everything is set. We're not missing any of the kids. People are getting phone calls if there's been a time change. We have 10 general ed routes, 10 general ed buses that are servicing the city of Southgate. And for high school and middle school, it's district-wide for pickup. So all 10 buses are going around the district and picking up students outside of the half-mile walkout. And then for elementary, we also have 10 buses going around the district and picking up. The team has pulled together, just making sure that there's no stop missed. We've done a lot of route changes because it's a computer program telling you that this should work. But then when you get out into the reality of the buses being out on the streets versus traffic, cars parked illegally or inappropriately at corners and streets, creating it hard for you to turn, or we've had a lot of water department issues in the city. We're doing construction throughout the town, so you drive through in the morning and it's good, and then you go back in the afternoon and whoops, now I got cones and barrels and people in my way and you gotta reroute. So we've all been really working well team-wise. I know I've been doing Zooms with Miss Irvine and letting them know, like, okay, well, this isn't working time-wise, so we're gonna take these stops and move them over here. Everybody's gonna get notified. The drivers are working well with me, is, you know, like, okay, I'm sorry this week you had here, but now we're gonna go here. We're tweaking it every day, making sure that our times are good. When we first started, we thought it would be okay to have a layover at the high school. We learned it doesn't work that way. As soon as you drop your high school kids, you're gone. Go pick up your middle school kids. You know, same. Drop your middle school kids, you're gone to go get your elementary. So they're constantly on the move. Our first bus pulls out at 6:15 a.m. and the buses don't stop until about 8:45 to 8:50. They're constantly on the move getting those kids to the school that they need to be going to. And then they come back and it starts again in the afternoon for high school. We pull out of the yard at 1:50. We all caravan over to the high school and it's immediate. We leave, we take our kids, we go get middle school, drop them, we go straight to our elementaries. In the beginning, there was a time delay and there was an issue, but we were able to readjust the buses, readjust the stops where they were assigned to who and how, and now everybody's running on time. And I think the last bus is doing an all clear by 4:40. So.
And their times have gone awesome.
Yeah, and there are times, in the very beginning, it was time delayed, and we had a lot of parents concerned, but we promised them with time, and just letting the drivers learn their routes, and the consistency of it, learning that path, learning their kids, because it is very important for us at Dean Transportation to know our kids. Every kid get on, we know their name, we know how old they are, right? We know, like, parents, we get to know parents. It's not just I'm driving a bus and you're not paying attention. We're really big on safety as well, ensuring that the kids know the bus rules. You stay in your seats. You behave. You don't, no name calling, no bullying. Like, it's all, you can have fun, but it's all about safety. So I have to say I'm very proud of the team that we've had as far as all of our office staff working together. I don't think we would be anywhere without all of us. It was really like 80-hour weeks. Just there from 5 a.m. to like 8 or 9, making sure that all of this was good to go. So.
And Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, and I did a couple Saturdays and Sundays. Quite a few of us did, actually, because it's an important position, and it's important that our kids get to school on time and that they know when they get to a bus stop, that bus is coming for them, and they know the time that it's coming and who's going to be driving it. So.
I will say from my perspective that, I mean, this is a brand new startup. It's not even a transition. Mm-hmm. And I have in my region districts that we've been there 10 years, and they're not as organized as they are right now. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is when school starts. Everybody's trying to figure things out, but so they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, we've had some computer programming problems. We pull straight from the Board of Ed's SIS program, right?
Mm-hmm.
The MyStar, and then what we're pulling, we've been working with Wayne Risa to ensure that we get all the correct information. I've built a really great rapport with Michelle Plummer over at Central Office and Carrie and Jonathan. And every day we're on the phone talking, and I've also built rapport with the principals and making sure that they get the proper list of their students and who's on what bus, and any changes, we're constantly communicating. So I think there's been a really great rapport built as well with our company and the school system, to where even though it's two separate entities, we're working as one team.
I will say that Dean has been very responsive. We've requested that all of the bus routes be named an animal so that young kids can identify and don't have to try to remember a number when bus routes change, buses change, drivers change, but they can identify a route, and that has picked up steam, and now we only speak in animal.
That's right.
So Southgate on our side, you tell us
We're still learning.
Route 13, and we just want to know if that's the butterfly bus. Um,
And
Sharon just
I just
called
go
me
by
that.
numbers.
Yes, I will also say that we are making sure that all of our administrators will have walkie-talkies so that they are able to converse with drivers. That is a really important next step. Our administrators are staying on staff at the site until all buses are clear and we know that every kid has gotten home safely, and our administrators are not leaving until then. So that has been a commitment we've made to making sure that if there are issues, that we're equipped to respond to any needs that parents may have.
Excellent. Any questions?
I just have a couple.
Dr. Pomponio?
The 10 buses you said that are general ed, what are the other buses you mentioned?
We have eight,
Eight
no,
special needs.
Okay,
seven special
need.
education buses, and we have one DCTC bus.
voc ed.
Yeah.
So it's just voc ed
Yeah,
that
voc ed.
handles for the high school.
are we still required to do like St. Pius? Because, okay. And the other thing is for the checkpoints in the neighborhoods, how is that with the neighbors? Are they taking it well with the routes and, you know,
We
with
haven't
those
run into any
checkpoints?
issues with that. When we did put the stakes out for identifying bus stops, they went back out in the afternoon and people took the stakes out.
Oh.
So
So-
they were the flags, like you would almost see like DTE, like line marker flags.
But it had
And they
your
had the
emblem.
Titan logo on it, and we handwritten on the back in marker if it was like an elementary or middle school or high school stop. Because middle school and high school stops all mimic each other, but the elementaries were varied just slightly because the walk radius, or because we're servicing our young fives and preschoolers door to door, we just made a preschool or young five stop a general stop. So those were a little different. We wanted to make sure we identified that accordingly. So everybody's been pretty okay with it. I've been actually driving a bus in Southgate, and I have not heard of any complaints. I know I've been asking feedback from the drivers, like if there's a stop where no students have been. I've been pulling that, and we are calling to inform the parents, like, hey, do you plan to utilize the stop? Yes or no? And some of them are saying, oh, I didn't even realize that's where it was, and then they start using it. Or
they say no.
Or they say, no, we're not gonna use it, and then we fix the routing by saying, you know what, that's no longer an active stop, I don't need to take a bus over there and waste time.
Okay.
So, but as far as the community, I have not heard of any complaints. I did have one parent call and ask if their daughter could stand on the other side until the bus got there because of a neighbor, and I said, most definitely.
Yeah.
Your daughter could stand there, we activate our lights, we cross them safely, they get on the bus, and not a problem.
And do we offer the school of choice parents to be able to use any of the stops? Or-
So if they have a caretaker in the city of Southgate in an eligible area, meaning that they have an uncle or they have a grandparent and they drop off to the grandparent or somebody that is a caretaker there, yes. But we do not take our buses into any other locale.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Mr. Green?
Yeah, I got a few. So, hi, how you guys doing? So first of all, I know you don't make all the decisions right away, but I'm gonna be pretty blunt and honest, because that's the way I am, okay, you guys? So first of all, I appreciate, and I will say this, I went back and looked at the board meeting of a bit ago. So in full disclosure, I'm the only one who voted not to go with Dean. I'm gonna let you guys know that right now. And I wanted to go back and I wanted to look at some of my questions when we originally took Dean, before the busing, but for all the extracurricular stuff. The question that I asked the owner, right, who's not here, or whoever was here representing, is can you staff this? Can you handle this, you know, our extracurricular activities and everything else? The answer was given to me basically was yes, we're getting the Trinity bus drivers, other people, this is gonna be fine. We've known this for 8 months. And so I'm gonna give you the credit for the fact that I know there's gonna be tweaks with new busing for elementary, high school, middle school, all that other stuff, and you made those tweaks, you made those changes. And I personally just shared with the superintendent that I had 3 or 4 phone calls that they're staying in the school because of busing, okay, so personally, so that's the good part. However, for me, we paid this company more money than we paid the other company that we had. And to be told in September, 8 months afterwards, that we're not gonna have buses for the first 2 weeks or events that start at 4:30, that's a problem with me. To have a kid and a football team show up at 6:20 when they're supposed to be somewhere at 6 o'clock to warm up so they don't get hurt. And a cheerleading group that shows up at 5:57 at Divine Child when the game starts at 6, when they need to warm up. We hired you for the full service, for more money than the last company, and that has to get shored up. Otherwise, I'm gonna have an issue. I'm just being real. Those are some of my concerns. I appreciate your 80-hour work. I know you work hard. Quite honestly, I'm a teacher. I know there's shortage of subs and this and that, but if the owner of this company couldn't have done this and they told us this, if I'm owning a business or if Mr. Estheimer's owning Primo's and he can't put an order together, he's not gonna sit there and tell me that he can, and then it doesn't happen. And so I do have some issues with that, okay? As for what you do in other districts, quite honestly, that's not my concern. My concern is this district. That's what we are elected for, that's what we're trying to do. So, whereas I'm happy to some degree, I still have some problems with the reliability. That's the very reason, or the first reason, that this board voted to go with a different bus company. And so some of those reliability issues have proven to rear their head again, paying more money. We could have done that with the other company.
May I respond?
You may.
Okay. So I definitely hear your concern, and when we found out as a company and here local that we were going to expand to general ed, we then started promoting that we're hiring. So when we're promoting that we're hiring and we were going out 4 to 5 times a week, sending out postcards, doing phone calls, doing promotional things, going, everything within what we could do within the legal areas of not stepping into other companies' zones. It takes 4 to 6 weeks of promotion before you see any reap of reward. So once we started getting all the applications in and getting everybody through our hiring process, it takes time. Most people don't realize the amount of time and the amount of things that we have to do as a driver. So when you get an application in, the first thing we have to do is a soft background check. Soft background check on them. Once they pass that, then they come in for an interview, they get fingerprinted, drug tested. They have to pass those. That takes another 48 hours. Then after that, then they get to come in and do their hiring paperwork. Well, we as a company, Dean, are like the most company I've ever worked for that ensures their driver are completely credentialed as far as defensive driving.
Healthcare 123.
Healthcare 123.
CPR.
CPI. I mean, there is so much
Defensive
training.
driving.
Not only are you doing like computer training and you're doing classroom training, you're also having to do behind the wheel training. Well, now the state of Michigan decided we're gonna add in some extra requirements in order for you to have a CDLB. So what used to take 3 weeks to do, now takes 6 weeks to do because the state requires us to have extra credentialing. So it's not that we weren't working hard or that we weren't hiring. We just literally had the most massive hiring training I've ever seen. We had 4 regional trainers.
From Lansing.
From Lansing,
North.
from North Point, from Walled Lake, from Bay City. Like, they were actually coming down here and staying in hotel rooms to train these people. And not only were these people training, they're also riding a bus, we are fully office staffed, out driving because they're going through the state requirement training. So we were definitely on point of getting those drivers there and ready for you. But the state requirements of what we have to do to be able to get a CDL, to be behind the wheel with students,
Okay, so
it just takes a little longer.
I don't think, no, so I know what you're
So-
talking about. And I will say this, that I can't speak for Patrick or Kelly. And of course, when we bid on this, that was a different time. Things have happened, and I know you know that it's a nationwide shortage of really employees everywhere for all different kinds of employers. So she's stressing that because it's amazing that we are as far as we are, but we don't have any extra people to do the 3 o'clock, the 3:15, the 3:30, the 4 o'clock trips. And I know that you want those done.
And we are going
I'm doing them for Crestwood now because they want theirs done as well. But I will say that we'll get to a game and no one else will be there yet because everybody's in the same boat.
But that's not my problem. My problem is this
Well-
district. My problem is in February, you had 8 months and knew what you agreed that you were gonna come in here and do for more money than the last company, and it's not happening. And even the timeline, we're being told 6 to 8 weeks is still 8 months out. I have an issue with that. I'm sorry, I hear you. I know there's a nation shortage, then you shouldn't have took the job if we can't get it done. I don't buy that argument.
I just am very appreciative that when I brought this to Patrick's attention, he has agreed to pay. We have been bringing in busing, external busing, which has been pretty significant in cost, and they are agreeing to pay that for us. So that has been a step that I feel that Dean has done, and we do appreciate that. And I do think that that would be expected, and so I know that Patrick realized that he did make that commitment, and that when we're talking about a contract for a full scope of services, the workarounds are as important as what can actually be delivered, so we do appreciate that.
Thank you.
If you have another question, go ahead, Darlene. Go ahead, Darlene.
Oh, no,
Did you have
Sean
another
was-
question?
So I know that the difference, what he's talking about, if that occurred, I don't know anything about that part, but are we discounted the fee, or are we?
They're covering all of it, the cost of doing that,
Okay.
yes.
And as you know, as a school district, our number one priority is our students. So to hear something like that, I didn't know, but to hear something like that, it's unacceptable. So whether you're a food service person or a bus driver, bus company, you have to know that for a student to be put in a situation where you're possibly, running behind, it looks bad on you or whatever, but we put our students first, so just keep that in mind as we're concerned about this being a student-centered organization district. So that's all I want to say on that, because I didn't have any
That's what
idea
we
on
do.
that.
That is the business we're in. So of course we know that. And of course, we don't want to be in this situation.
And we don't like to hear it. We don't like to hear stories like that, students being left behind or waiting or late or delayed, so.
No,
I'm
nobody's-
just stressing that point too.
Yeah.
Because, whether we get a discount or extra money, students do come first. That's all I want to stress on
Absolutely.
that.
So, thank you. And thank you for working so hard to recoup or overcome some of the challenges that you faced when you got here. I'm really, thank you. I'm sure we all feel the same way. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. I apologize.
Missy.
I think your first statement was, was the one that kind of really sets the tone for what this discussion is really all about. It's not about how hard you guys have worked, how well you're ready to take care of the kids. That's got nothing to do with it. You said you were surprised by what you found when you started the job here.
We
That's-
started from ground zero.
That's right. That's exactly what my point is. The fact that you were surprised by what you faced for coming to our district to perform your service that we're paying you for is exactly what the problem is. And I'm a little disappointed Patrick's not here, because the reason you're surprised is the analytics that he glowingly described, as you just mentioned as well, analytics versus reality. Well, his analytics that he sold us on that drove superior performance, clearly, analytics can be good, they can be bad. Clearly, in this case, they're bad, right? Because they didn't reflect what was going on the ground, which made your job harder. So we're really talking to the wrong audience. No disrespect, but he should be sitting right here. So the points I'll make are, construction is not new. Street, road construction is happening everywhere in every state and every city across the country. So that should be in the analytics. Illegal parkers have been around longer than any one of us times 10, and if that's affecting you guys, that should be part of your analytics. So the hiring is another question. Yeah, of course everyone has a hard time, but that should have been part of his analytics and his whole business plan as well. So the problem is not how hard you guys have worked or care about taking care of kids. That's got nothing to do with it. Clearly, that's what's kind of saved the day here. There's something wrong with your approach, your model. I don't know what it is. I'm not in your business. That's where the problem is. And so, actually, he should be sitting here, not you guys. Thank you.
And I agree, I have nothing against you guys. Working 8 hours a week, I commend you. and all the changes that you know, what you've done with the bus routes. I commend you on that. But I agree with Mr. Lamos is that we're talking to the wrong person.
And I'll just say one more thing, is that if he had sat in that chair back there and up here when he was speaking with us, says, hey, we're starting from ground zero, guys. We're gonna come in there blind, boom, starting ground zero that day. Do you think we would have given him a contract? No, right? There's no way. He said the opposite of that. So I'm not saying he intentionally misled us, but whatever the model is wrong, and we're glad you're working to fix it. But that's the core of the problem, and I think we should be talking with him, not you guys.
Mr. Sage.
Agreed. So on all points, both Mr. Green, Mr. Lemos, you guys have done a phenomenal job. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, this doesn't come across as an attack. That is not the intent in any way, shape, or form. But we all had to make a decision when this came to the board. And just like Mr. Lemos said, we had to base it off of that. So I beg to ask the question is, if we didn't have the money to pay it, what would you guys say to us? If we couldn't pay you, you'd be done. Okay, so I would like to know financially what type of discount that we're gonna get for the services that haven't been provided. I know they went out and took care of it and got some other buses and took care of that, but what about the stuff that we've missed? So where can we make up to come together on this? And that's all I'd like to say.
Yes, and as situations have come up in which services may not have been rendered, if they are charged to us, we'll definitely have that conversation with Dean. Just as we did with the buses, just as we did with offering the support in the administrative assistant realm, that was all very kind. I mean, it was all expected, but it was very responsive. So I don't believe there will be any objection to making sure that whatever contract payment happens is all part of the services we actually receive.
If we're made right, then we've got a starting ground.
Right.
So, just so I'm clear, it's the sports trips that are the biggest issue with all of you,
Well, I mean,
and really nothing else.
No, everything else. You
But-
didn't listen to anything I said. The issue is your analytics and your business model that caused that, whether it was a sporting bus or whatever, it doesn't matter whatever the issues were that you guys faced, and you hit the ground running, right? And you said you
No,
just
that's
started.
all normal routing issues, that's all normal, what she's talking about. Routing, if,
Well, that's, all right, this is not a place for debate. I don't want to get into debate.
well, I wanna
That's-
make sure that I convey to Patrick what you guys are,
I will have a
Okay.
conversation
knows.
with Dean,
okay,
and I'll talk to Patrick.
okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming this evening.
Yeah, and no disrespect intended, but you
Yeah.
can see we didn't get what we bargained for. So thank you for coming, and thank you for working so hard.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next presentation we have is the spring 2022 M-STEP results.
So good evening. So I want to kind of go over the testing process that we followed in the last spring. It was the first return to 100% participation in the assessment process. As you know, in 2020, testing was canceled due to the pandemic. And in 2021, testing was only mandatory for in-person learners. So we had we didn't have very representative sampling. The impact of that is that not just in Southgate, but throughout the region, data trends have been significantly disrupted from inconsistent attendance, different modes of learning. One of the things that I appreciate is that the inconsistent attendance partly will be rectified by having full-service transportation, as you know, we don't have parents that are bringing their kids every day. We have the buses that are picking them up and bringing them in. We use this data in a variety of ways. The M-STEP is considered what's called a criterion referenced test. In other words, it tests students on the basis of their mastery as it pertains to state standards, the state benchmark standards. It's given once a year. It's given in the spring. The SAT and the PSAT, which are also detailed in here, as well as the NWE, are different. They're norm referenced. In other words, they are based on the skill and age levels that the students are at, and they are not compared against a curriculum standard. They're compared against the performance of their peers in the state and around the country. We give the NWA 3 times a year, and we do that partially because the state requires a benchmark assessment at least twice a year under Section 98B, but we find that giving it 3 times a year as well gives us that midpoint set of data that allows us to respond to what the data is telling us. You will find that our data from the NWEA actually responds or aligns better with the SAT and the PSAT because those are norm referenced as well. The MSTEP data tells us a little bit about our curriculum and the alignment of our instructional practices toward state standards. The patterns may illustrate that instructional materials may not be aligned properly to state standards, or that specific professional development might be needed to help our teaching instructional practices align better to the state. Now, when we look at the NWA and PSAT and SAT, they tell us areas of growth or areas of deficiency with our students. Because we give those tests, or we give the NWEA in particular more often, we spend a lot of time analyzing that data and adjusting our instructional practices to meet the areas of weakness as well as capitalize on the areas of strength. That becomes part of our MTSS program. We use it in our WIN program to not only, with WIN, we don't necessarily even just work toward weaknesses. We actually look to present obstacles for those who are ready for a higher cognitive challenge. So with this data, the next steps is that we're targeting areas of growth. We primarily do that using normative data, but the state data does help guide the direction of how we respond to the test data. And what I mean by that is where we see we're low in the growth areas according to the normative data, then we can address those areas and then target them toward the state standards as well. We are in the process of looking at the MSTEP data from the last couple of years down to the classroom level to see if we can find patterns and trends going back as far as the 18-19 school year. That's as far back as we can go in the state system. Oops, sorry, Siri just wants to talk too, I guess. We're aligning our district goals, and when I say goals, I'm talking about our instructional goals and our evaluation goals, so that we are completely aligned toward working on improving our academic outcomes. For example, our district evaluation goal, where everybody, all teachers in the district are working toward, is based on student engagement. I have a firm belief that when students are engaged in a curriculum that is rigorous and appropriate assessment strategies are being utilized, high levels of learning will occur. I have a philosophy that we plan, we engage, we assess, and then we reflect, and then we start that process all over again. In reading, our academic goal is we're looking to increase our reading performance by a factor of 125% over the expected growth for our MTSS students in kindergarten through 11th grade. We do use the NWEA to measure that. In math, we're looking for that same growth. So if a student would grow from, let's say, 80 points to 100 points, we're looking for that student to grow from 80 to about 110 points. 10 points greater than what that growth would be, because we want to start closing the gap, not just perpetuate it year after year after year. We're looking for that from in particular, our MTSS students. Our MTSS, that's multi-tiered systems of support. Those are our at-risk students. We have a number of programs that we used to target the areas of academic growth at different tiers, Tier 2, Tier 3. And the new Michigan Curriculum Improvement Program, or Improvement Plan, aligns nicely and recommends that we work with our MTSS students. I believe that if we raise the floor for our MTSS students, it will promote and we have engagement as a goal area. You will find that those classroom conversations, the classroom activities, the small group instruction, the things that research is telling us is the stuff that works right now for our kids will have greater impact. So that's kind of what we're going to do with the data. There is accountability that's built into this. I will be back in front of the board in February, giving you an update of our progress on these academic goals, and then again at the end of the year, how we ended up doing with these goals. These goals are stout. They're pretty ambitious, but we have to set our sights high if we want to start moving toward the place where we want to be. So, thank you. Questions?
Any questions? Back on point.
Yeah, I see the differences between 18-19 and 20-21 and then the 21-22.
Right.
So they're bouncing back okay, but the middle years, well, during the pandemic is low. Are we doing anything different or unique to bridge the gap between those that suffered from the pandemic, from the lack of the learning loss during
So
that?
there's quite a few things that we're doing. Number one, the state has provided additional funding for at-risk, so we're expanding our MTSS
I'm sorry,
interventions.
What was that you just said?
The
MTSS?
MTSS,
Okay.
which is our multi-tiered system support
Right.
for our
Right.
at-risk kids. We partner with a company called Munetrics
Right.
that helps us use analytics to help us identify a lot of our at-risk students. We actually identified significantly more this past year than we've ever done before. We're hoping that that translates into additional opportunities for at-risk kids. There are funds that are being made available for social emotional support to help kids that are, dealing with a lot of struggles from being out of school for a number of years or a number of months, as the case may be, and then coming back in. We're still dealing with, I had a conversation with the principal at Grogan today, where we have kids that literally have not been in a school building since March of 2020. And, these are elementary kids, so they're not only learning content that they should have learned a year and a half ago, but they're also learning how to do school all at once. And they're doing it with peers, some of their peers, especially here in Southgate, because we came back in January of 2021 that have been in school. So those gaps that we see in the classrooms, and I feel like right now I'm throwing out excuses, and it's not meant to come across that way. It's just the reality of what we're dealing with. And so we're trying to design a system that will intervene at all these different levels. But most importantly, if a kid is struggling in class, what we find is they disengage. They're not attentive, or they're sometimes misbehaving. And so getting back to why we selected the goals we selected, we did so with the idea of, okay, we have to engage the kids where they're at and grow them from where they're at. It's a challenge, but I mean, our staff is up for it.
So has Michigan given them any professional development for those types of kids, and any additional funding for just that issue?
So yes, there is additional funding. There are some things that the state has provided. We are part of a pilot program called My EWIMS, which is Michigan Early Warning Intervention Monitoring System. That is at our secondary level, which integrates with our MyStar, so that it'll track the three main areas for, that we need to look at if a kid's at risk of not graduating, and that's behavior, attendance, and their academics. And the My eWIMS program, this will be our second year involved in it, is a online dashboard that is constantly updated, that helps provide that feedback to our MTSS team at the secondary level, providing support to kids. In addition to that, one of my strong suits is data manipulation. And so, for example, I just provided to the principals and the MTSS team I think it was Wednesday, a detailed spreadsheet with where kids are with attendance and behavior already this year. I included last year's attendance and behavior data, the NWEA scores, so that right out the gate in September, I also provided them the names of all of the kids who qualified under Section 31A as being at risk, so that we could kind of use all these data sources to identify kids, and so we're not waiting until the end of October when the NWEA testing window's done. We can get started now.
So the teachers can contact the parents and let them know that this student is at risk because they're identifying those students based on the data?
We don't have a system that where we do direct parent communications with the based on this data. Now, we do have a system that within I think it's 30 days. I'll have to go back and look. 30 days of the end of the NWEA window, we're sending that information home to the parents, where their kid is, where they performed. That's a requirement under Section 98B. So parent communication is part of it. As far as how often and specifics of those contacts that the MTSS coordinators make, I don't know that off the top of my
I
head.
just want to make sure that parents are aware that their students, if they're falling behind, that they don't have to fail the grade or
Right.
fall behind because of that.
So we have some fail-safes in that, like I said, there is that the communication after NWEA. When we rolled out grading expectations for this year, one of the expectations that I made very clear was that if a student is in danger of failing or is missing a number of assignments, it is a basic expectation that a parent is notified.
Oh, that's good. And just my last question about analytics and assessment. Is it separate that you can look at, or can you look at the online learners and how they're progressing and how well they're doing? Or is it all, bulked in with these MSTEP?
So from the state side, all of this is together. I could probably work some data
I was
magic
gonna say,
and
since you like.
get
like
you
data.
some information in that regard. Now, to give you an idea of, we'd have to take a snapshot of a specific time of how many kids were online and how many were in person, because I can tell you from personal experience being at Ford Line, it was there for a while. It was kids were in, kids were out. It was the school hokey pokey.
Yeah, it's just a concern because I know that a lot of parents are worried about their kids and some have held
Yeah.
them back. So it's just that pandemic
But-
lag.
But, couple things. One, we're responding to that because we're responding to where kids are at right now. And two, we're not the only district that's dealing with this. And so we're as a state, as a nation, we got a lot of bright minds that are working on ways to help support kids and recover from the learning loss. Because you would think that even our kindergarten students from last year who really never experienced any time at home, even they were a little bit behind coming in, according to their initial NWEA tests, which caught me a little bit by surprise. I assumed with parents and everybody being at home more, but it was a scary time. I don't know if, sitting down and reading with Junior was top of mind for everybody.
I'm glad to see that we're on top of it and there's a lot of different things that we're working on to cover that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Freitas?
Yes, would we be able to get the data that compares us versus our surrounding districts?
So I have some of that data. It's toward the back. And I looked up Riverview, Wyandotte, Taylor, Woodhaven, and Lincoln
Okay.
Park. That was what my predecessor did. If there's any other districts that you want information on.
Sorry, I
can
didn't
get
see
it.
that page.
That's all right.
I was making notes all around through it.
It's all good.
And then also with the data, are we going to be trying to make any class offers changes at like the middle school or the high school, like the elective classes, by looking at some of our data and?
So one of the things that Superintendent Irvine has made abundantly clear, and I fully and wholeheartedly support,
I'm on pins and needles.
is classes at high levels, we have to consistently offer them, and so that our kids have access to rigorous education at the highest levels. And it's not just to prepare them for college, it's to provide that challenge, to give other kids something to look forward to. Because when a freshman starts high school or an eighth grader comes into the high school and they don't know when AP Calc is going to be offered or if it's going to be offered, they might have a tendency to want to go to a different school. But if we're offering it every single time, Southgate's where they want to be.
Well, and I just think that for the good of our kids.
Right.
We will always offer the highest rigorous, most rigorous classes, even if that means that our only class is an honors physics class for physics. It will be the highest version that we can offer.
Right.
Because we do believe that we have students in our system that want that, and we believe that if we offer it, others will come if we are developing their capacity along the way. But we won't be a district that doesn't offer stats. We won't be a district that doesn't offer physics. We will not be a district that does not offer the full spectrum of what's available.
I just have a comment on that, is I totally agree with that. Into the aspect that with all this testing and the loss, it's great that we take the student that's struggling and try to make them be proficient, but I think this is a systematic problem in education altogether, and something that I hope, keeping the classes, that's good to hear. We need to take that student that's in the middle and make them great, and that's gonna bring, greatness is going to breed greatness, right? Iron sharps iron. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we have those classes and people are succeeding and they see those classes are here and our scores are going up, and we keep offering those classes, we're gonna get those type of students that are still gonna wanna stay. And I'm not saying we dismiss the students that are struggling, that we bring them up also. But it can't be all in one basket and not taking that student that's at the mid-level and making them great, because that's gonna draw other people to our district academically.
So one of the things that we've done the last couple of years is we've applied for what's called an innovative program waiver, and we've used it for what's called a WIN program, what I need. We use the assessment data, but that is a little different in that it's targeted for all learners. And so, yes, we do use that time to help our kids who have those areas of growth. But for the kid that is rock solid, that needs that extra challenge, that needs that extra cognitive push, we use that time for them as well. And I know our elementary schools right now, in particular, are working on a overhaul of how they approach that day so that they can give even more dedicated and specific time to the kids in the middle and at the top as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I just have a couple quick comments. So what I'm seeing from this information is it looks like we had some winners and we had some losers, right? We had some up, some down. We of course see the average in the end, but it seems like some places figured it out, or some people figured it out, and some people didn't. One of the things that again, I don't know education, I'm not an educator, but what I do know is some statistics and how I'd like to see them. What I wanna see is, and it's hard to tell because of the years, we have the 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 21. What I'd like to see is, what does that group look like as they go through? As a group takes it in third grade, as a group takes it in fourth grade, as a group takes it in fifth grade? Do we have a group that just has figured it out? Or is there a gap in, they get it in third grade, they don't get it in fourth grade? They get it in fifth grade, they don't get it in sixth, and they nail it in seventh. I mean, that tells me that we have a teaching problem. If the kids figure it out one year and don't figure it out the next, and, okay, if they don't figure it out any year, maybe we have a group problem. But that's how I'd like to see some of this data, because from that.
Cohort data.
Yeah, from that I can tell you what's happening right and what's happening wrong, maybe a little bit better than the scatter.
Typically, I would say you can follow that by just following, going third grade in 17, 18, fourth grade 18, 19. And it's not
And I realize that 20 and
20 threw
21
everything.
I realize that
Yeah.
20 and 21 threw that off, and I realize that there were kids in school this week, and then they were exposed, they're out of school, they're staying home, I realized there was a jump around. But now we've settled down, right? Now you gotta pick if you're gonna be online or not.
Right.
And to Dr. Pomponio's question was, yeah, where are we at with the online? Is the online working, or is it just what parents wanna do because it's more convenient? I don't know. I'd like to get some answers on that. Maybe we don't have that data yet. Maybe it takes another year or two to square some of that down.
Well, we definitely have the enrollment. So our enrollment in elementary for online last year was 80, around 86. It's 13 right now.
Okay.
So with busing, I will say that there were people that said they went online because that was the only thing that would work with their work schedule.
Right.
And I do think busing has moved them out from that online presence. I do think we have some that are still online because of individual family issues that might make them especially vulnerable.
It's another data point that can say, okay, we didn't have busing these years, now we have busing. What is it doing to attendance? Maybe, that plays into some of this
Yeah,
too.
that's the one I'm real curious about.
As you look at
is
attendance numbers, you have, you got a group that just has you got a grade that maybe, let's say, that just pick on the sixth graders right now. That group of sixth graders has an attendance problem, and they have since they were in third grade, and their scores reflect it. Then we know we've got a group problem. But if that, again, if that group gets it some years and doesn't others, then I think we've got to identify those target areas where maybe we're just missing. And again, it looks here like we've got some schools that are doing it and some schools aren't. And it just as we see it, that's the stuff I'd like to kind of get sharpened up on the data. But I'd love to see how a group moves. I know I can see 4 years worth.
Right.
I can see where the seventh graders are now, they were in third grade. Just a different point of data that I'd like to see. Again, I have no idea on how to improve it. I'd just like to see the data on where it is.
So Jason, you'd like to say, like, the class of 2020, when they were in fourth grade,
Right.
that in the same class in fifth
Right,
grade
how
and
did they
sixth,
do?
like,
Yeah, how did they do each of those years? And again, I realize that 2021 is gonna be a wrinkle, but how did they do in 17, 18? How did they do in 18, 19? How did they do now?
There's definitely value in that. M-STEP is more of a snapshot view. One of the things that I've, like to do is look at the NWA, because we have 3 sets of tests and we do it K-11. So that's a lot of longitudinal data that we can look at over time and pick up on some of those trends.
And yeah, again, I'm not trying to pick on any one group. I can tell you, the elementary school that my kids went to, third grade was a clunker. And that's just all there was to it. Second grade teachers were great, fourth grade teachers were great, third grade teachers, didn't work. And you just knew that, and that was weird, right? You just knew that that's what you were gonna deal with. is that what we're dealing with here, or is it a group problem? So that's what I'd like to see, if we can, I don't know, we can use some of this data to help us with that, that'd be great.
Can that go into Munetrics at all, or is that just something totally different?
So it does, the NWA data goes into Munetrics, not so much the MSTEP data. If there's a wealth of data on myschooldata.org, that's where I get the information for some of our surrounding districts.
Mr. Green?
And this is an age-old problem, but another thing, the processes, or maybe you can enlighten me if there's a process for the philosophy of training teachers or whoever, we have to make these relevant to the students, because I've given NWE testing in my school, and if there's teachers, and I'm not saying anybody here is or isn't, I'm saying in any district, that they're sitting there and there's no value put into these tests, they're just hitting a button to get it done. And I know there's safeguards that if you get it done too fast, they make you take it over, but they know how to play the game, right? They can sit there and wait for a few minutes and then hit a button, and then hit a button. So somewhere along the way, we have to build value in these tests to make them somewhat more accurate. Do we have a plan for that? Is there a district plan that you have to make sure that we ensure at least, or try to ensure to students and to families, that these tests are not to be taken lightly, that it's just not, oh, it's a day off, it's not in the curriculum per se, it's not in Mr. Green's social studies class, but you need to take this test and I'm just gonna be hitting buttons for answers, because that can skew data too.
So, kind of two different responses to that, both kind of in the same. One, it gets back to our district, one of our district goals of engagement. And really, almost a synonym for engagement in this situation would be that word relevance. It has to be relevant to the students. It has to be relevant to the teacher as well. So that is an area of focus for this year. And we know that when students find their learning relevant, they are more engaged, they're more just in tune with doing better. Second, we have to be more explicit about how we use our NWEA data, so that parents know that this is not data that we just file away, that we look at it, and not only do we look at it, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it than I'm even presenting here, as you probably well know. I mean, there's something called the continuum of learning. And when you look at that continuum of learning and you look at the subsets of NWEA data and where those RIT scores are, and what that will tell you about the areas, the specific areas that you should target for that child to grow, we go that deep for that individual child. When we talk about differentiation, which is teaching kids at all different ability levels, one of the tools that enable us to do that effectively is things like the NWEA test.
How do the parents learn the results of that?
So within 30 days of giving the test, we mail the results home.
So it's like another kind of a report card,
Yeah.
so they get vision into what's going on with their kid.
Yep, and it's written in a parent-friendly way.
Does it show the correction or improvement plan or whatever the action plan?
It does not necessarily go into the amount of depth that we go into when we work with the individual students, but it does give them a little bit of the history. It gives them the scores and a little bit of an explanation of what those scores mean at that child's level.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next presentation is the continuity of learning update.
Yes, I'm going to be brief. I appreciate all the dialogue. I think achievement is the real work of schools, and I'm excited to get to that frontier. But I do want to make sure that we bring to you the continuity of learning update, which is required under ESSER 3 every 6 months. We need to update you. What's our continuity of learning plan? How has it been updated? We are relying nearly exclusively on in-person instruction. at this point. We do have an option for virtual, and that's pretty much our mode of instruction. As far as ESSER 3 expenditures, ESSER 3 is a pot of about $5.4 million that we've been given as a district for the purpose of recovering from the pandemic, which means finding the students that did not come to school during that time period, getting them to school, getting them back in person, and getting them learning. I mean, it was no secret that the state of Michigan lost track of many, many students. And we know that as they're coming in, getting on the bus, they're getting to our classrooms, and parents are telling us that they haven't been in school for the last 3 years, and they weren't connected to a remote environment, and they weren't connected anywhere. So when we look at what does it take to bring kids back into the school setting, some of the things that we've done, transportation is a significant one. Going and getting the kids and bringing them to school. And we have $1 million of that ESSER directed towards that. $500,000 this year, $500,000 next year. We also have $100,000 of that money is from GSRP for each year. We're also using at-risk funds, some of our new at-risk money, to come in and bridge that gap because of all of the interventions at this point in time that we can do is making sure kids are in school. That's been a really clear one from our last experience. District promotion. I know that there is a lot of visibility around the expenditures that we've made recently related to promoting our district. Whether it is the banners, they're the banners on Eureka, whether they're the banners in our parking lot, whether they're the branding that's happening at the high school, all of that is one-time money coming through that is giving us a chance to remind all of the children and the families that there's a school system in this area and that they should be sending their kids to school. And this is us. This is who we are. We expect that within the next couple of years we're going to see a population boom, which is the COVID babies coming through to our school system. We have to be ready for them. By adding all of the preschool classrooms that we've added to our schools, opening another school was essential to receive the student population we expect to have over the next few years. And we want to make sure that every single student that lives, or child and family that lives here, doesn't see any other school district but us, because we're everywhere. We're everywhere you look. And we're also a flagship. Our high school is a flagship, because when families are deciding whether or not to choose a school system, they're looking K-12. They're looking at that grade 12 flagship. What does it look like for my kid to finish here? And where will they go after here? What kind of athletic opportunities and extracurricular opportunities will they have? What kind of curriculum course opportunities will they have? And if those aren't prepped and ready to go, we aren't going to be a destination for families in this area. So I know as we commit to the sinking fund, there's questions about how much money is dedicated to that. And this is ESSER, very flat out district promotion, return to school promotion that is critical for us to get kids back in school. The next section is address behavioral and academic impacts of virtual schooling. So we know that children who went through virtual schooling are positioned differently, intellectually, cognitively, experientially, than kids who were in class during that full time, and we know that from prior years. Class size reduction is a really important topic. So we chose to hire and recruit a math teacher in the spring, because even though we did not feel that we had all of the students that we would expect to have at the high school, we knew that if we didn't bring a math teacher to bring the rigorous courses and make them available, that we would have eliminated some offerings. That's a class size reduction decision that we said for academic loss, making sure that we have this opportunity. So that's one of those in class size reduction. After the end of next week, all of our kindergarten classes will be between the class sizes of 15 and 21. That is huge. We had class sizes of 27 at Grogan, and at Allen 28, almost 30 at Allen. In previous times, we may have allowed those large class sizes to exist. This ESSER money allows us to break those classes down so that our young children have an opportunity to have a low class size and get a head start on what they need to know for their next years ahead. And we know that the research shows that children who have strong early child experiences, they reap dividends well into the years that come, the Perry Preschool Project. Virtual mentors, we are continuing with virtual mentors as part of our ESSER plan. So we do recognize that children that are online also need support systems. So we've added a counselor to online, a social work counselor to that instruction. We've added a coordinator to that instruction. We've made sure that the state of Michigan changed some of their requirements, requiring us to have certified teachers in every content area online. That was actually not something prior in the last couple of, I think 2 years ago, you did not have that requirement. So making sure that we had those certified teachers in place. So virtual mentors are one of those. Behavior guides and support. We have hired several behavior guides for extra bodies and hands, rather than waiting until we find out if a kid needs an adult support through a special education system. We're proactively providing supports of personnel who are there working with kids that haven't been in school yet, and they're in 3rd grade, or they haven't been in school yet and they're in 1st and they're struggling. So behavior guides and supports, and every school has one of those. Academic loss supplies and resources are also part of that. Medical and health, our nurses are coming out of ESSER. Our pandemic medical assistants are coming out of ESSER supplies. And of course, we still have facility improvements that we are continuing on with HVAC that's been coming through the bond. So this money looks like a lot of spending, but that's what this money is intended for, to get us back on track so that as we are strategic with this money, we are hoping that it brings us the student body that we know this community needs in order to have the critical mass at the high school to offer what we need to offer at the high school later on. So that's the larger vision of what we see happening at this moment. And I know it's easy to look at a community level and just feel like just a lot of spending happening. And spending is happening. Because that's what that money is intended to do at this moment. So I just, so you're aware that that's where we're putting those resources in support of kids.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Irvine. So a couple of things to piggyback and a couple of questions. So first of all, I do agree with somebody I talked to also about the spending. Like, we're spending. And I think the community needs to know is that, again, these ESSER funds, they're not, first of all, they're not infinite. If we don't use this money, for what it's geared toward to help get, bridge student achievement, you lose it. It's gonna go away. Eventually, this money's gonna go away. And we're not taking this money out of the general fund.
2024, it's gone.
Right, it's gone, 2024. So we're not taking a lot of this money for some of the questions out of the general fund. It's coming from the government for the ESSER money and putting these strategic things in place. Hopefully, we would have to make decisions as this board if this ESSER money runs out, or some of those, if we want to retain some of these people, where that money's coming from. And the hope is that we're going to recapture it by doing the right thing and bringing more FTEs and more students into this system, into this school system. Now, do we know for sure that's going to happen? No, but we have the money, and that's what we're going to try to do. We're not just going to sit on it. So we're not spending out of the general fund, lavishly, like I'm sure it seems like. We're spending the money the government's getting us to get us back on our feet, and so is every district, and trying to recruit that. And something has to be working with the transportation, with the school, with the ESSER funds and what we're doing, because for the first time in a long time, we're on pace to gain students by over 100, I believe, or that's our projection.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that my star numbers now, if count happened in this moment and everyone showed up for count, we'd be over about 163 students.
And so there's going to recoup, I don't have to do the math for people. Each student's worth X amount of thousands of dollars, so we'll just leave it at that. A couple of questions. So that's my point I wanted to make on the spending and the ESER. And do we make the right decisions all the time? I don't think anybody does. We take the information we have at hand and we try to make the best decisions at that point. And we just gotta win more than we lose, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. Do we know the percentage at this point of the online learners we still have in this district? Do you have that available? And is it more skewed toward high school or elementary or middle
So
school?
we have 92 high schoolers, we have 22 middle schoolers, and we had 13, we may only have 11 now elementary.
Okay.
And that drops from about 160 high schoolers for the last year, about 112 middle schoolers, and about 80. So that's the change, the shift that we've seen.
Thank you. My second question would be, do we have numbers, now that we've had this in place, our GSRP program, have we been tracking the numbers of the students that we had in the GSRP preschool program that has matriculated into kindergarten and first grade that have stayed within our system?
We will have it as soon as count is certified.
Okay.
We will provide some longitudinal data that
Okay.
shows, I mean, we only have that longitudinal data, but will be 1 year old.
Well, that's fine.
It'll
It's a
just be-
starting point. We have to,
Yeah.
we got it.
But
I
we-
get it.
I'm curious about a couple things. I am curious, the data that I want to see personally is I want to know how many of our young fives we retain to kindergarten.
Right.
Do our young fives actually stay around for kindergarten, or do they think their only option is kindergarten here, and if they want to go to first grade, they go to a different district for it? I mean, that's a question that I have, do they automatically do that? And then, do our preschoolers stay within the system? We have 124 slots this year, 7 classrooms, and right now we have enrolled 100 out of the 124. And so it's an ongoing target.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Dr. Pomponio.
The behavioral guides, can they be the teachers, or is it just a separate hiring?
It's a completely separate, we're very cautious about the use of ESSER money. I will say that the biggest advice that the state is giving is be very careful about taking ESSER money and putting it into wages, something that you cannot take away once ESSER money goes. So the importance of the one-time nature of that, being able to separate it out in what's a position versus what's a wage percentage.
And how many nurses do we have, and how many medical assistants do we have? And then at the end in 2024, are we able to keep them, or are we planning a phase out, or how many buildings are they in right now?
Right now, we have 2 nurses. We have a district nurse that's a 12-month nurse that we received some grant funding for. We also have a school nurse, which is a UTS 180-day nurse. So we have 2. We also have 3, we now have 3 pandemic medical assistants that are funded out of ESSER. And we have 1 that is part of our unit, our paraprofessional unit, which is a permanent one, that's there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Freitas.
I was just gonna piggyback what Mr. Green said about the ESSER money, and the money is used, we can't just put it in the bank and just save it. It's needed to get the children the services that they need. And you can tell by the statistics and the tests that our test scores have dropped. So the children need the services, and we just have to hit and make sure we get all the right resources for these children to bring them up. And like Sharon said, the statistics show that when you catch a child young, get them the help that they need in reading and math, it'll reap its rewards. So we just have to keep doing that and push forward.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item F, which is citizens' comments. Mr. Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Robert Pulaski, and I live at 12757 Chestnut Street in Southgate. So I've got 3 things. First thing I want to talk about is our sinking fund. No update currently, but I'm still actively working with businesses as we speak, hopefully to bring you guys an update in the next couple weeks. But as always, there are flyers right over here, if anyone can see on virtually right here in my hand. This gives you all the basic information on what we're going to be proposing on the sinking fund. If you have any questions, it is on the website, or make sure to contact the board office for any questions. But for anyone in person, we have flyers up here at the table, and we also have flyers where the agenda and the citizens' comments forms are as well. Now, I want to talk about our Powder Puff game. Now, that was one of the most interesting games I've seen in the history of our Powder Puff games. 8-8. That's pretty good, but I think our seniors could have did better. But I think 8-8 is a start, and I look forward to next year's. But it was a perfectly good start, and perfectly start to homecoming as well. So congratulations to everybody on our team. You did a wonderful job. Besides the cold weather, we did a pretty good job on both teams. Now, the big news, I've mentioned the Wayne County Youth Council for the past couple months. I come back to you guys from endorsements from Commissioner Palomera, Abdul Haddis, and Commissioner Baker McCormick from Wayne County. As the endorsement from Ms. Irvine herself, I want to personally say I've been admitted to the Wayne County Youth Council representing downriver for all youth in Southgate and Ecorse, River Rouge, Wyandotte, Trenton, and Riverview. It is my honor and pleasure to serve all of the youth in District 15 and working with other districts all across Wayne County to represent the youth today. It is my honor and pleasure to be on this council, and I look forward to representing our district going forward for the 2022-23 school year. As always, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak tonight? Okay, we'll go ahead and close citizens' comments and the superintendent update.
Yes, and I want to say congratulations, well-deserved. You work very hard at supporting everyone, so thank you. I do want to say it's Spirit Week, and I hope that you find the opportunity to come to our parade on at 5:30 on Friday, and to the game of the week, Channel 4's game of the week, which is the Titans and Carlson. So that is at 7 o'clock. I hope you'll be there. And as our class representatives were here last meeting, I do expect to see something different in our parade. Our classes will be present in our parades, but there won't be floats. And we're going to support them in their new tradition, which is the booths that will be available there on site. So good luck to the Titans. I know that they will make us proud no matter what that outcome is. They have done that all season long so far. So it's going to be an exciting game. And we have many other teams that are playing now. Just as a little small bragging point, our freshman volleyball just swept Allen Park after they swept Carlson, and they are doing pretty outstanding, if I have to say. So I'll step down off the pride wagon and let the next thing happen. So
Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is the consent items. Number one is September 13, 2022 regular meeting and closed session meeting minutes and the HR update. So I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Supported by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And action item number one is the approval of the bid award for the Davidson digital marquee.
yes, as Plant Moran is coming up, I just want to make a point that this digital sign started in the original bond plan in which the Anderson High School marquee that was on the corner of McCann and Leroy was going to be repaired after being broken for a couple of years. And so we made a decision that rather than replacing that, we would have a Southgate Community Schools marquee that sits on Leroy and Trenton Road, and that it will be located at Davidson Middle School. So I do want to clarify that although this is worded as the Davidson Middle School marquee, this is actually the Southgate Community School marquee on which we can put homecoming events, we can put games, we can put plays, we can put the major district events there so that those that are driving through that main area. And that also took that marquee out of the neighborhood so that we weren't interfering with, the neighborhood, so.
Thanks, Sharon. Good evening, Gary Kent, Plant Moran Cressa. I'm here to present the award recommendation for the Davidson Marquee sign project. As Sharon had mentioned, this is an effort of both Southgate Community Schools, TMP, Plant Moran Cressa. There's been a lot of meetings as far as the design of this marquee sign. It went from a two-sided to now a three-sided located at that corner of Davidson Middle School, which really allows the community to see it from any angle at that intersection. The scope of the project itself includes producing and installing a three-sided LED marquee sign, masonry piers on all sides, as well as a concrete base, electrical and data connections to the middle school, so you can, provide any images or messages that you want to the community or students. Bids were due on September 15th. We really hit the streets hard on this one and got some good bid coverage after extending the deadline several weeks. 4 firms bid on this project, and on the next page you can actually see the breakdown from the 3 different sign manufacturers. But ultimately, upon completion of the review of proposals, the steering committee is recommending a contract amount of $92,871 to Michigan MI Signs and an amount of $19,985 to Douglas Electric, and a contingency amount of $11,285, which would be returned to the district should nothing come up, but that's just to cover the project should some unforeseen items pop up. The total project award is $124,141. On the next page, like I mentioned, you can see the breakdown of the 3 sign vendors, and hats off to Sharon and her cabinet. I mean, you pull into Anderson, you see a ton of different branding that's there now, whether it be the banners, the directional signage, the wayfinding signage, the athletic entryway, the stadium entryway, which is going to be finalized tomorrow. There's a lot going on, and I think the timing of it is critical. All of different materials. This one we postponed just due to the timing and the numbers we were getting back earlier in the year. Just postponing it several weeks, we were able to lower the number about $94,000 from the original bids that we received. So that was a huge win for the district. The following pages you can find both proposals from MI Custom Signs and Douglas Electric, as well as the TMP design. Like I said, the design itself, it's 3-sided, which is great. You can put any images you want out there. There's backlit lettering that says Southgate Community Schools on it, and there's a direct raceway to Davidson Middle School to control all those images and messages.
I think we're still working on the design at the top.
Yes, yep.
That's probably not going to be the design.
Question? I believe so, yeah. Mr. Long?
Do we have the protocol administratively or for oversight of the content images that end up on that sign?
We will. There will be some rules about what we put out there.
And
Yes.
an individual who would be responsible and accountable
Right.
for that?
Yes.
Thank you.
yes.
Mr. Green?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, this is in the bond, right? So
Yes,
this
it's
is
in
in
the
the bond
bond.
money, so.
It's in the bond money. It was a original part of the bond, but we just moved it from the neighborhood and put it on a major street.
Got it. Thank you.
Was,
Sorry, Mr. Green, do you have another? No, I'm good.
was Image 360's base bid, did that include any of the electrical contractors or contingencies?
No, that was just for the signage, the masonry piers, and the concrete foundation that was going to be there. So it was identical bid to MI Custom Signs. And the third bid from Identicom, they did come in lower, however, they did not have a complete bid package. They're missing a couple items, and they didn't fill out all the proper forms that the state required.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sage?
Is there an image of the sign that we could see?
There was a rendering, actually, if you want to see this right here. This is just a rendering, so you can see the high level, what it would kind of look like. And that would be the same on all 3 sides, and you can see the aerial image of how it would be laid out on that corner.
So it's funnel shaped like this?
Correct. It's yeah, there's one short side and then 3 identical length sides. So the actual location we'll figure out to make sure that it's the best view from all 3 sides, but correct.
I just got one more question. Please don't take this negatively, but how do we know the price is gonna stay the same? Because it seems like when we start a project, it always comes back and it changes. What guarantees do we have that that's not gonna happen?
So in their proposal, we made sure they locked in their prices for 60 days. The only reason a price would change is if we change the actual bid documents and ask for something more than what we're currently asking them for. So we made sure in our RFP that they guarantee their prices for 60 days and that we were locked in.
But we also have issues though that sometimes cause change orders, like connection to electrical that should have been intact and you had to do something additional to the electrical connection, for instance, or something you didn't expect?
Yep,
Is
and
that-
any unforeseen conditions, you know, once we start opening up existing conditions, if something's there that we didn't foresee, that's why we had the contingency amount in there. But as far as, you know, the design of the sign and what we're currently asking the electrical contractor to do, their prices are locked in and guaranteed.
Thank you.
No,
So-
that's a great
So
question.
just speaking from a construction side, an example might be, they start digging this trench because we tell them go from here to there with the conduit.
Understood.
And they run into a barrel of concrete that was an old something, and I mean, you're talking an old school, concrete must have been cheap in the 50s because it's buried everywhere around the school. And they could run into that. They do, they're gonna come to us and say, hey, we need more money because we did not plan on taking out this. That's something
It just
that'll
seems
change.
like our percentages of that happening have been 100%.
Sure.
So it's like.
Sure. I mean, and the bigger the project, you know, the bigger the odds, the
Right.
smaller the scope of the project, the less of the chance, I think, so. Just speaking from that industry. Anyone else? All right. I just had one question.
Yeah.
Any idea when we're gonna look and see this installed?
So I actually had a conversation with MI Signs this morning. They're thinking end of November for installation. They said about 6 to 8 weeks to procure the sign. Hopefully 2 to 3 weeks with the city for permits. So,
With the city for permits?
yeah, just to submit to obtain a permit for the sign, they have to submit the drawings for review with the city.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I thought we were exempt from that.
I can look into it.
Thought we were exempt from,
Okay, I can look into it. That's what they were saying this morning, but I'll confirm.
yeah. I know any electrical permit would be with the state.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the permit for the sign itself, I thought we were exempt.
Okay,
It-
it might just be because they're portraying images with LEDs. Okay, I'll find
I
out.
did think that there was a restriction on the size of the LED panel in the display when it was in the neighborhood.
Yes, there is one.
So I don't know if that's the,
That might be what they're referring to.
Hmm.
I'll find out and send out an email to everyone.
Okay. All right, end of November-ish.
Yep, end of November, beginning of December is what they're
Alright.
targeting.
Very good.
I will compliment Michigan Custom Signs because they are, so far, the only company that has actually delivered on the day that they told us that they would deliver. They actually installed all the Eureka banners on the day that they said they would. They put the banners up the day they said they would. So this has been, working with them has been a pleasure.
Excellent. All right, with that, I guess we'll bring the discussion back to the table here and entertain a motion on action item number 1.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the bid award to Michigan, or MI Custom Signs for the Southgate Community Schools Digital Marquee at Davidson Middle School for an amount not to exceed $124,141.60.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Mr. Sage, okay. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Dr. Pomponio.
I just want to say, I've been wanting to see a sign, a digital sign at Davidson for years. So to see this actually happen is, I'm ecstatic. But at the same token, when I saw the Anderson sign come down, I felt, you know, a little opposing to Ms. Irvine, that I think that every building should have their own marquee because there's a lot happening in each building. Davidson alone, a lot of things happening. So I personally would like to see, maybe in the future, a marquee back up at Anderson because I think they deserve their own with each and every other building. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Item J, any discussion? We don't have any discussion items. Employee representatives, I don't see any employee representatives. Information and announcements from the board. Dr. Pomponio.
I'm sorry, I know it's late, but I have to say this. A few days ago, something was brought to my attention, and I wanted to share it with you. But first and foremost, I want to acknowledge all of our staff and city crossing guards and employees that are veterans. We honor you and appreciate that you support our students on a regular basis. My family is a veteran family, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Army. Not only have I heard of very touching and heartbreaking stories, this is one that had me and my father in tears. So it's very heartwarming to hear that we have deep-rooted patriotic veterans working for us and living in our community. I would like to honor a man named Pepe Marino. He has worked as a crossing guard at Ford Line Elementary for many, many years. He's a Vietnam veteran and has asked on several occasions to have the flag flown, but was told over the years that there wasn't anyone to do it, which is, a lot of things are going on. So, but it was brought to my attention and shared with our superintendent. She immediately contacted this new principal, Vanessa Mansour, the new Ford Line principal. What she did was amazing, and when Mr. Marino heard that there will be a flag after all these years, he was happy and in tears as well. I want to thank Mrs. Mansour and Mrs. Irvine for the quick response and for truly appreciating a veteran and what it means to many people to have that flag flown, representing many things to many people. Mrs. Mansour, with the help of our behavior support guide and Marine Corps veteran Matt Nowicki, had been raising and lowering the flag in honor since this request was made. In addition to that, Ms. Mansour ordered a solar light. She notified me that the light had arrived Monday and that it would take 3 days to be fully charged and that flag would fly permanently with the spotlight. So to all veterans, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Green?
I just have to say, I wish everybody at the high school, to have a fun spirit week and the whole school district. And I know most of us have kids that have been in high school or middle school or are currently there. And so wish the youngest daughter her happy first homecoming Saturday. So have fun, Carly. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Estimer.
I just want to say, unfortunately, I will not be able to make it to this for the first time of the homecoming. We have a wedding to attend, the rehearsal Friday, and I don't think I might be able to make it back for sometime for the game in the evening, but unfortunately, I can't make it Saturday. But wish them the best of luck and at the homecoming. I hope they have a great time. But I wanted to ask Nick in the back. I've gotten like 5 texts that it got cut out after about 21 minutes. Is that going to be? Are we going to have a video posted? Have you? Okay, all right. The live feed got shut down and everybody's texting me. So that's all I need to resolve. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item is adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Mr. Estimer. Is there support?
Yes.
Supported by Mr. Green. Thought we were gonna have to wait that one out. Any discussion? All right. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.